Tony only intended to make a short TikTok video with his friends for fun. The Haunted School Infiltration Challenge was going viral fast. Students in the area whispered to each other, "Anyone who records a video inside public school number 4 after midnight will blow up." The three of them climbed over the crumbling fence, each holding a dim flashlight, but only 2 came back out. Tony didn't disappear. He returned home 3 days later, locking himself inside the bathroom with the door shut tight. His skin was ghostly pale, his eyes cloudy, his lips curled into a chilling smile. Tony's hand clutched a tattered school notebook, its cover scorched, but one line in marker ink remained perfectly visible. Students may not leave school unless the lesson is learned. Public school number 4 was built in 1918, when America entered its industrial age. The building had a classic architectural style: long, endless hallways, dark red brick walls, and classrooms with high ceilings and arched windows. In its early days, the school was seen as a model of education in Jacksonville. But by the early 1950s, the school began to change. Rumors spread quietly of students who vanished without a trace, of screams in the middle of the night, of classrooms that were always locked, even though there was no record of ceiling collapse or structural damage. Parents called to check in, but the administration always gave the same answer: "That student transferred." Nothing unusual. The strange center of it all was the school's final principal, Mr. Harrow. No one knew where he came from, only that he always appeared in a worn-out gray suit and never let go of his old brown leather briefcase. Students gave him the nickname Snake Eyes for his piercing gaze and emotionless, monotone voice. Former students recalled Mr. Harrow taking some of them down to the basement for special discipline. None were ever seen again. One girl said she had been forced to stand and read aloud for 4 straight hours, not allowed to blink, just because she misplaced a punctuation mark. Then one day, all records of teachers and students from 1955 to 1960 vanished from the city's archive system, as if they never existed, as if the school itself had decided to erase all evidence of what had happened inside. On April 2nd, 1960, a column of black smoke rose from the roof of public school number 4. No one called the fire department. No alarm sounded. No one ran out. The flames devoured the top floor and seemed to stop on their own before reaching the first level. When authorities arrived, they noted a thickly sweet, nauseating odor in the air. Nothing like burning wood, but more like hair, fabric, and human fat. No bodies were found. No attendance records for that day. No educational data documented any incident. In the city's report, only 3 words remained: isolated incident. Since that day, the building has remained abandoned. But locals living nearby say that at exactly 3:15 p.m., the old dismissal bell time, they can still hear the school bell ringing, a distorted sound, choked as if squeezed from behind a throat. A local documentary crew once tried to record the sound. They placed a microphone outside the school gate, set it to automatic recording. The next morning, the equipment was still there, but the memory card was empty. Or rather, it held only one 4-second clip, the sound of children giggling, followed by a slow, deep male voice. "I'm not finished taking attendance." Some residents near the school moved away. An old man who had lived next door for 40 years told a local newspaper, "I used to see students standing behind the 3rd floor windows. They didn't move, but one by one, they turned their heads to look at me." The building was sealed off, but that didn't stop the curious. From thrill-seeking teens to amateur ghost hunters, everyone wanted to step inside public school number 4 to feel the chill. However, most who entered never talked about what they experienced. They didn't disappear, they returned, but empty, as if a part of them had been pulled out and left behind in those moldy walls. One famous paranormal investigation group spent an entire night on the 3rd floor. They brought infrared cameras, EMF meters, and low-frequency audio recorders, but the footage only captured the first 27 minutes. After that, static distortion and a sudden flurry of whispers, layered in many childlike voices, overlapping like a twisted nursery rhyme. "Can't leave, can't leave. Teacher hasn't dismissed us." One member of the team, Linda, was found in a state of panic in a parking lot 3 blocks from the school. She couldn't speak, couldn't recognize anyone, and in her hand she clutched a wooden name tag, engraved with the words, Mary Ellen, Class 3B, 1957. Gradually, the rumors spread about the sound of synchronized footsteps marching down the hallway at exactly 3:15 p.m., even though the building was completely empty. About a shadowy figure standing at the end of a classroom who vanished when looked at directly. And most notably, the rhythmic spelling echoing through the dusty teacher's room microphone, Harrow, repeated again and again. No one ever cleaned up the school. No one ever tried to repair it. And every device placed inside, cameras, recorders, clocks, stopped working exactly 27 minutes after being turned on, as if time within the school only permitted existence equal to one final lesson that never ended. In 1998, a journalist named Rachel Monroe, who had once been a student at public school number 4, decided to return to the old building to write a feature for the local newspaper. She had attended first grade there during the final year before the school was shut down, and there was something in her memory that always gnawed at her, a lesson she could never remember finishing, nor how she ever left the classroom. Rachel entered the building with a cameraman bringing a high-powered spotlight, a shotgun microphone, and an old map of the school. But only 20 minutes in, the camera began to glitch badly. The audio picked up unexplainable sounds, chairs scraping against the floor, test papers being crumpled, and one whisper especially close to the mic. "You haven't turned in your work and you want to leave already?" Rachel fled in fear, but from that night on, she kept dreaming the same scene, herself as a child, sitting in Class 3B, surrounded by classmates with no faces, and a man standing at the front, only a shadow with no body. And every morning when she woke, there was an old math test under her pillow, bearing her full name and a blood-red score of 0, even though she lived alone, and no locks had been tampered with. Tony is still alive, but he is no longer himself. He sits motionless by the hospital window, and each morning he takes a pencil and crosses out one name in a scorched notebook. No one understands what the list is, but at the bottom of each page, the same line is always repeated: accounted for. Public school number 4 still stands, looming like a tomb in the heart of Jacksonville. Rain or shine, at exactly 3:15 every afternoon, the sound of chalk scratching against the wall can still be heard. And sometimes, if it's quiet enough, a voice will softly call out from a classroom that no longer exists, calling your name in the exact voice of someone you once loved. And if you hear your name inside the devil's school, it means you've been marked present. And in that place, one seat still waits. One test is still waiting. A ruler is still tapping the desk, tap by tap. Pocatello High School, Idaho. An old school with a red brick facade, steep Gothic-style roofs, and endlessly long hallways that always evoke a sense of unease. From the very first step inside, one can feel a cold draft swirling about, as if the place itself is whispering something that refuses to fade. The frightening thing is, these rumors aren't baseless. A video once circulated online shows the lights in a locked classroom flickering on in the middle of the night, then instantly going out, while a faint white figure drifts across the lens. Along with it came several unexplainable audio clips, the giggles of children, footsteps from a ceiling with no walkway, and a whisper directly against the ear, "I'm still waiting." Locals, long familiar with the tales of haunting, are increasingly convinced that something here never truly left. The school has become the center of a chilling TikTok trend, Number Pocatello Challenge, where students film their eerie experiences after midnight. Several videos were mysteriously deleted, some accounts vanished without explanation. One common thread remains: the camera operator's terrified eyes, and a faint figure in the background, unmoving. Founded in the early 20th century, Pocatello High was once the pride of Idaho's educational system, where generations of students came and went to the sound of ringing bells, echoing down red brick corridors. But beneath that tradition and pride lies a fractured history, stained with deaths that were never properly explained. One of the earliest tragedies occurred in the late 1940s or early 1950s, when two female students reportedly made a secret suicide pact. No one knows the real reason. Some say it was forbidden love, others blame relentless bullying. What is certain, one of the girls hanged herself inside a locker after school. The entire school was shaken, but her identity was quickly buried, not mentioned again, as though silence would erase it. From then on, strange things began to happen around the locker she once used. The scent of soft lavender perfume would occasionally drift through an empty corridor. Some students reported a warm breath brushing their ear as they reached for their books. Others discovered handwritten notes in old cursive, always with a single line, "You didn't come? I've waited so long." Teachers and maintenance staff avoid that area at night. Some security cameras aimed at the lockers went dead, or captured overlapping, glitched images. If the locker was just the beginning of the unease, then the school's theater became the epicenter of all incomprehensible phenomena. Located in the west wing of the main building, the theater features a high arched ceiling, exposed iron beams, and an aged wooden stage draped with faded red velvet curtains. Many students have claimed to see a figure in a white dress standing atop the rafters. When someone shines a flashlight, the figure vanishes instantly, like it had never been there. One evening, while the drama club rehearsed, the entire lighting system suddenly cut out, then flashed back on in crimson red, accompanied by the creak of wooden seats and the stage curtain parting on its own. No one was behind the controls. The vice principal in charge of the theater's technical systems confirmed several reports of the main switchboard flipping itself at night, yet every time he checked, the controls were untouched. One sound tech was once locked in the control booth for 30 minutes. No one was outside, and hallway security footage showed nothing at all. Yet what truly haunted students wasn't the physical anomalies, but the feeling of standing on stage under the spotlight and hearing an audience. In the empty theater below came the faintest clapping, distant whispers, the low ripple of laughter. Faint, distant, but undeniable. Perhaps the most terrifying account was from a senior girl playing Juliet during a rehearsal. After her suicide scene, she fell onto the stage and didn't get up. She later confessed that as she lay down, a freezing hand grabbed her wrist, holding it tightly, whispering in an aged woman's voice, "Stop acting. This role is already taken." Unusual occurrences at Pocatello didn't stay confined to the theater or lockers. They began to spread, quietly and menacingly. Some teachers claimed to grade assignments that hadn't been turned in, submitted by students who transferred out years ago. Many students felt someone sit beside them in an empty class, only to find the seat vacant when they turned. The second-floor restroom, site of a fatal accident in the 70s, was often reported locked, though empty. When the door was opened, the mirror appeared fogged, as if someone had just breathed onto it. Sometimes words appeared faintly, written with a fingertip, "Don't leave." These incidents weren't enough to cause alarm, but those who spent long nights there, janitors, security guards, understood. Something was stirring in the depths of the school, something that didn't want to be forgotten, something that had been here for a very, very long time and was waking up. In 2014, a surveillance video from Pocatello High went viral, shaking the internet. Hallway lights flickering on and off, a door opening and closing with no one around, and a misty silhouette drifting past the camera. The footage was verified to be unedited and even analyzed by paranormal researchers. Soon after, a team from Salt Lake City spent 2 nights investigating. They brought electromagnetic sensors, infrared cameras, and low-frequency audio recorders. Results showed strange electromagnetic spikes, whispers picked up near microphones with no audio wave, and a recording of frantic footsteps running across the empty stage. Though no one was physically harmed, one female team member quit afterward. She kept dreaming of herself, seated in her old classroom, surrounded by faceless classmates and a figure behind the podium, calling her name again and again. Despite years of renovations and changes in administration, Pocatello High still cannot shake off the dust of unsent souls. Each year, new students enroll, but there are faces no one remembers ever arriving, and no one recalls seeing them leave. One October night, a group of curious students returned to the school after hours to test their courage. They turned on flashlights, launched a live stream, and wandered through the icy corridors, joking along the way. The broadcast ended abruptly when the camera panned quickly across a dark classroom where someone was standing still at the podium, holding a ruler, tapping slowly. Still missing, still missing. The next morning, the phone was found lying on the tiled floor, and the live stream had been deleted from the system. Don't believe you're alone when standing in an empty classroom, because at Pocatello High, the roll call is never truly finished, and each night, one seat remains vacant, waiting for someone to sit down one last time. And if you hear a soft voice brush past the nape of your neck, "It's your turn now," then it's already too late to turn back. Clara Hartfield, a first-year psychology student at Huntington College, had just moved into Pratt Hall dormitory less than a week ago. She always considered herself a rational person, not superstitious. But that night, something happened, something unexplainable. 2:17 a.m. Clara jolted awake. In the dark, she noticed that the room across from hers, room 319, was glowing with a strange, intense red light seeping out from under the door. Room 319 had been sealed off for many years due to reasons related to the mental health of a former student, according to the dorm supervisor. They had never reopened that room, and no one nearby dared to mention the name of the girl who once lived there, Martha. Clara sat up, a chill running down her spine. The air outside the hallway was unusually cold, as if someone was breathing right behind her neck. She slowly stepped toward the door of room 319. The red light kept glowing, not the warm hue of a nightlight or an emergency bulb, but the kind of red that felt wet, like blood. Clara gently placed her hand on the doorknob. Just then, she heard a faint whisper, a girl's voice, trembling, rising from within. "I don't want to be alone anymore." Clara jumped back, but in the hallway mirror at the far end, reflected clearly, was a girl in a red dress, standing behind Clara, with no face. In 1910, Martha, a girl from New York, moved into Pratt Hall of Huntington College. Shy and withdrawn, she quickly became isolated. Red dresses, red curtains, red bed sheets, everything in her room was drenched in crimson like a defensive shell. Martha made no friends, joined no activities, and often talked to herself in the mirror. Students in the dorm nicknamed her the Red Lady. Some girls even smeared red lipstick across her door as a cruel prank. She began to suffer insomnia, telling others that a red shadow appeared in her room each night, watching her. Some students claimed they heard faint whispers from her room at midnight. Her room became its own world, curtains sealed shut, mirrors draped in white cloth. No one realized her mind had cracked. Red, for her, was no longer a preference. It was her last refuge. And then, she vanished into the very color she had loved most. That fateful night fell somewhere in mid-March 1913. No one remembers the exact date, only that it had rained endlessly. Rainwater leaked through the old roof of Pratt Hall, dripping steadily like a ticking clock. Martha hadn't left her room for a week. Everyone had grown used to her weirdness, the mumbling at night, the burning wax smell, and her eyes always fixed outside the window. But that night, a student named Grace, living in the next room, said she awoke because her entire room felt red. Not from a light, but from a hazy, bleeding glow leaking from Martha's door. She screamed. The dorm supervisor was called. They broke down the door, and what they found inside was a scene no one would ever forget. The entire room was bathed in crimson light. Red curtains floated as if underwater. In the center, Martha had hanged herself with a red silk ribbon, head bowed, hair dangling. There was no blood, but everything, from ceiling to floor, was dyed red. On the wall, written in lipstick, "Red is where I melt into. Please don't leave me alone again." No one could explain how the room glowed so vividly without any special lighting. No one understood why the room's temperature was 10 degrees colder than the rest of the building. But from that night on, Pratt Hall was never the same again. After Martha's death, the Pratt Hall dormitory fell into a strange, heavy silence. No one spoke of it aloud, but students began to switch rooms, change floors, or apply to move off campus. The dorm supervisor sealed off Martha's room, yet no one dared to walk past it at night. Some claimed they heard soft humming from inside, like a lullaby, like someone calling a name. Others swore they saw red light seeping from under the door, just like the night Martha died. A month later, a student who lived across the hall went mad. She clawed at his own face until it bled, screaming that she was in the mirror, begging her to stay. Then came a string of strange events. Sudden blackouts at exactly 2:17 every night. Red candles appearing on windowsills without explanation. One student woke up to find her cream-colored curtains had turned deep red, like soaked in blood. The school board tried to suppress the rumors. They called it mass imagination, but the students still living in Pratt Hall knew the truth. Martha was still there, not speaking, not clearly visible, just present. And like an unwritten curse, the saying spread. If you see the red light 3 nights in a row, you're next. Clara, a first-year student living in Pratt Hall, couldn't shake the memory of that first red glow. Unlike her peers, who tried to brush it off, she began to dig deeper. In the old library, among scattered yearbooks and dusty records, she found a faint name in the 1912 student list, Martha, the only one with no graduation date. Next to it was a strange mark, a single red dot. She questioned longtime staff and finally heard an old janitor whisper, trembling, "That poor girl didn't die peacefully, poor thing. For a week, she didn't eat, didn't sleep. The other kids drove her mad, and one day she vanished, but left her fury behind." Clara snuck into the sealed room with a friend named Kayla. They brought flashlights and an old camcorder. The rusty door creaked as it opened. The air inside was thick, reeking of melted wax and old lipstick. On the desk lay a red lipstick tube, uncapped. The mirror was fogged up, as if someone had just breathed on it. The camera recorded a clear moment. Kayla stared into the mirror, then suddenly turned pale and spun around. "I saw her standing behind you," she whispered. A week later, Kayla withdrew from school. After the incident with Kayla, the administration could no longer remain silent. They held a closed-door meeting with the department heads, but no official statement followed. Room 319 was secured with 2 new locks. The hallway leading to it was blocked off for renovation. Students were told to ignore baseless rumors and strictly forbidden from filming or taking photos in Pratt Hall after 10 p.m. Clara withdrew from all activities. She kept to herself, no longer appearing at the library or in class. A month later, she was seen quietly packing up and leaving the dorm without warning. On her bed, she left behind a note scrawled in red ink. "She doesn't want to be forgotten." Every year in March, the month Martha died, the red light returns, faintly glowing from room 319, even though the power's been shut off. New students, unaware of the legend, often mistake it for a nightlight or projector, until they all start having the same dream. A girl with long hair, in a red dress, standing in the hallway holding a lipstick, silently knocking on every door. One night, guards swore he saw a red blur dart across the corridor and vanish into the mirror. But when he checked the security footage from that time, the file was completely corrupted. Clara never returned to school, but a freshman living on the same floor swore she once saw a strange girl appear in the mirror. Wearing a red dress, hair draped over her shoulders, softly whispering, "Will you stay with me?"